Welcome. We are visiting the provisions of the Indian Contract Act. The point of attention is about the lawful contracts. When the agreement becomes a contract, of these situations, once there is a particular contract which is lawfully enforceable, but in between there can be a situation where some of the agreements will become voidable and some will be void. We have to consider voidable agreements for the civil liabilities. However, as far as the criminal law is concerned, there the voidable agreements, whatever the infirmities those have, those will have their implications for the mens rea from the point of view of the criminal law. We have considered some aspects, but today from section 17 onwards, 17, 18, and 19, these three sections of the Indian Contract Act are regarding the specific situations. The first is of a fraud. Section 17 of the Indian Contract Act defines fraud. Fraud means and includes. See, the definition here is making itself specific and also at the same time is on its principle. The principle which is included as a fraud, principle which makes a fraud, and particular situations which are specifically being taken having been covered by a fraud. Fraud means and includes. Means and includes. Once we write the word includes, that means the specific attention is of the particular features going to be mentioned. Fraud means and includes any of the following acts committed a party to a contract or with his connivance or by his agents with intent to deceive another party, thereby thereto his agent, or to induce him to enter into the contract. So the word used here is intention to deceive. Fraud is including certain acts where the ingredient is going to be intention to deceive other party. Therefore, when we will be through the following specific situations mentioned here, then our focus is to remain upon the ingredient of intent to deceive. So the first situation is the suggestion as a fact of that which is not true by one who does not believe it to be true. See, suggestion is to be given regarding a fact which is not true. But it is not only that much. Suggestion is as to a fact which is not true by one who does not believe it to be true. If A believes particular fact to be true, then this is not going to be a clause in which his mental state or his act and conduct would be covered. Suggestion as a fact of that which is not true. Fact is certainly not true, is the first basic feature. However, if one does not believe it to be true, if one believes it to be true, though it is not true, then it will not be covered in clause 1. The suggestion as a fact of that which is not true. So suggestion is being given with respect to a fact which is false, which is not true. However, the person who is making a suggestion believes it to be true, then it will not be covered here. So fact is not to be true and it is to be believed to be true. It is not believed to be true. And then when suggestion follows, therefore A person who makes a suggestion believing that fact is false, but still he suggests it that it is true. So 17.1 fraud covers a situation where party knowing the fact to be false put forward suggestions with respect to it as a true. The second situation is the active concealment of a fact by one having knowledge or belief of the fact. Now, a particular fact which is in knowledge of a party, but party conceals it. So concealing a fact is a situation which is covered, whatever may be the implication of the fact. But concealment is the focus. Like when A enters into a sale of a horse, knowing that horse is sick, but this fact is concealed. So the suggestion as a fact that which is not true by one who does not believe it to be true. So false fact being put forward is one situation, and second situation is active concealment. Active concealment here again is, as it is put up earlier, intention to deceive. Fraud is committed by acts with intention to deceive. The suggestion one is false fact being put forward as a true fact. The second situation is active concealment. Is the intention to deceive is inherently here in this particular state of the particular person. The third situation is a promise made without any intention of performing it. It normally happens that when there are bids and one knows that he is going to make a bid at a price which he is not to perform. So he will go on bidding higher and higher just to defeat the other persons, because the bid which one will be making is not to be performed, so it doesn't affect him. So such like situation is a promise with the intention of not performance. So once there is no intention to perform and a promise is being made, then it also comes in the category of a fraud. First class is when intention is to put forward a false fact. In the second situation, intention is to conceal a particular fact. The third situation is to make a promise with the intention that same is not going to be performed. Number 4, any other act fitted to deceive. So this residuary clause is the clause which in fact is a reservoir, a universal reservoir of whole range of frauds, whole range of deception situations. Any situation which is of the ingredients of deception is covered here in clause 4. Therefore, intention to deceive is being recognized, being accepted, given legislative seal, giving the force of law behind it, that deception is unlawful. The fifth is any act, such act or omission that the law specially declares to be fraudulent. So over and above, if there is a particular situation which is declared by law to be fraudulent, then that also is being made specifically covered within the fraud. So fraud means and includes any of the acts committed with intention to deceive, and same maybe of putting forward a false suggestion, having intention to conceal a particular fact, having intention not to perform the promise being made, and whole range of situations which have the cover of deception, and including those situations which has been specifically declared fraudulent by law. Section 18 is regarding misrepresentation. Now here as well, the definition opens with a clause: misrepresentation means and includes. Once we say means, and once we say means and includes, only difference is that here attempt is being made to make the definition to be as wide as possible. First is the positive assertion in a manner not warranted by the information of the person making it of that which is not true, though he believes it to be true. Now, in the category of fraud, we had noticed that the clause 1 is making it that suggestion as a fact of that which is not true by one who does not believe it to be true, does not believe it to be true, but is making a suggestion as it is true. Now, in section 18, the misrepresentation is being defined as a positive assertion in a manner not warranted by the information of the person making it of that which is not true, though he believes it to be true. Now, the fine spectrum of difference of features of section 17.1 and section 18.1 are to be inferred from the choice of the words in which these clauses are being legislated. Here in 18.1, the word phrase used is positive assertion. However, in 17.1, the word used is suggestion. So, in 17.1, the captioned word is suggestion. However, in 18.1, the captioned word is positive assertion. So, there is a degree of difference when we say making a suggestion means assertion. And when we say in the form of misrepresentation, we say positive assertion. So, a degree of assertiveness is being added here in 18.1, making it that here there is going to be a positive assertion. However, in 17.1, there is word used is suggestion. So that is also an assertion, but here it is made specific that it is going to be a positive assertion. 18.2 says any breach of duty which without an intention to deceive gains an advantage to the person committing it or anyone claiming under it by misleading another to be to his prejudice or to the prejudice of anyone claiming under him. See, misrepresentation is now of the features that there is a breach of a duty. If there is a duty to perform, but an breach is caused with respect to that duty. Intention may not be to deceive. Intention may not to be gain out of such non-performance of a duty, breach of a duty. Even then, it will become misrepresentation. Why? As it was a duty and duty is being breached. The very fact that duty is being breached will be taken for the purposes of contracts as a misrepresentation. The third situation is causing, however innocently, causing howsoever innocently party to an agreement to make a mistake as to the substance of the thing which is subject of an agreement. Very, 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 very fluid reality. Causing howsoever innocently, causing howsoever innocently a party to an agreement to make a mistake as to the substance of the thing which is subject of the agreement. So, if mistake is made with respect to the substance of the thing, and mistake may be innocent. So, when we visit this class, when we dive deep into the foundation of this principle, it brings us face to face with that as far as the substantive parts of the contracts are concerned, as far as the substantive parts of the contract are concerned, with respect to it, legislature, the law is not expecting any mistake, even innocent mistakes of the parties with respect to the substance of the agreement are being taken as misrepresentation. So it puts us on an alert that a party which is going to be a party to an agreement, then as far as the substantive part of the agreement is concerned, one is not to make a mistake. If one will make a mistake with respect to the substantive part of the agreement, then that mistake, even innocent, will be brought within the category of misrepresentation. Ahead in section 19, the concept, principle of voidability of agreements is being legislated. Voidability of agreements without free consent. What is being asserted is that if there is an agreement without free consent of party to the contract, then that contract will be voidable, not void. Voidability would mean that it will be within the option to rethink, reevaluate, and reconceive, provide a consent. The agreement will be voidable, not void. The agreement will be voidable if same has been without the free consent. Now see, when consent to an agreement is caused by coercion, fraud, or misrepresentation, the agreement is a contract voidable at the option of the party whose consent was so passed. So if A is a party to a contract, if it is without free consent of A, then this agreement, this contract will be voidable at the option of A. A party to contract whose consent was caused by fraud or misrepresentation may, if he thinks fit, insist that contract shall be performed and that he shall be put on the position in which he would have been if representation made had been true. Therefore, the voidability has been made into two distinct classes. One class is when free consent has been because of coercion, fraud, or misrepresentation. The second is when it is by fraud or misrepresentation. So coercion as such has been taken out in the second situation. In the first situation, agreement is a contract voidable at the option of the party whose consent was so passed by fraud, misrepresentation, and coercion. Here in the second situation, it is fraud and misrepresentation. Now, what the second part says, let us read the second part. A party to contract whose consent was caused by fraud or misrepresentation means if A has given a consent because of fraud or misrepresentation of B, fraud or misrepresentation has been caused by B upon A, then still A, who had given consent, which is not free consent because of fraud or misrepresentation of B, and if A thinks fit, means the person upon whom fraud or misrepresentation stands caused and contract stands entered upon, which otherwise is of the category of without consent, an agreement without consent of A because of fraud or misrepresentation by B is voidable. However, A may, if thinks fit, insist that a contract shall be performed and that he shall be put in a position in which he would have been if the representations made had been true. Therefore, as far as the civil law is concerned, certain situations, even of coercion, fraud, misrepresentation, have been considered under a legislative policy that parties can be permitted to have option to reevaluate for themselves in their own interests and to make voidable contracts as enforceable contracts. But this situation is no more permissible as far as the criminal law is concerned. Therefore, when we were visiting the criminal trial proceedings, we had noticed that mens rea has been the basic ingredient of offenses made punishable. The mens rea would mean the application of mind, means the considered opinions. Now here, as far as the coercion is concerned, fraud is concerned, misrepresentation is concerned, again, there is an application of mind, intention is there, and those intentions as those are made as of no consequence in certain situations when the concerned parties reconsiders the same. But as far as the criminal law is concerned, these are not pardonable, these are not reconsiderable situations. Now, the Indian Contract Act, as it was originally framed, it also included as its chapters of partnership agreements, of sales of goods agreements. Now, with time, these chapters of partnership agreements and sales of goods agreements have been segregated and made independent, distinct acts. So, Partnership Act and Sales of Goods Act are essentially part of the Contract Act. Partnership as well is a contract, and the sales of the goods means the non-movable and movable properties. So sale of movable properties are also contracts, and sale of immovable properties as well are contracts. Likewise, there are bailments, and all that. Therefore, the Indian Contract Act, as far as the principles of entering upon lawfully enforceable agreements are concerned, and as far as the transformation of the agreements into contracts is concerned, same are included and covered by the principles of Indian Contract Act, starting from section 1 to section 18. These 18 sections be taken as the first principles, the fundamental principles, the foundations of entering upon lawful agreements as contracts. Therefore, we as lawyers, criminal lawyers, have to be very specific, fully conscious as that the word agreement as is the ingredient of many of the offenses. The same may not have all the features as are expected under the Indian Contract Act to have a full grip of the implications of agreements as far as the agreement is one of the ingredients of the offense. The same is to be evaluated in terms of the requirements of meeting of minds, intentions with which those situations of meeting of minds have been there, and that which takes us to the appreciation of existence of or otherwise of the mensa rea. However, when we will be appreciating the civil laws, then the agreements have to be visited from the point of view whether or not those agreements have become contracts, and whether or not those agreements are in the category of voidable agreements. Therefore, these specific distinguishable features of agreements from the point of view of the ingredients of offences and agreements from the point of view of civil enforceable contracts are to be appreciated distinctively. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.